Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Knit Girls. This is episode
184.
I think 184. We're kind of off in that we're together.
Yes.
So that happened.
It's the 29th of November, 2013. I'm Leslie, also known as You Don't Call Me Les.
And I'm Laura, also known as Lala. And if this is your first time watching the show, we are doing an abnormal format. We are taking questions from a thread that we have on Ravelry called
Ask Us Anything.
Ask Us Anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting here knitting. What are you knitting on?
I'm knitting on the knit that will never end.
I think that's both of our knits right now.
The one that I'm knitting is Viajante, which is a pattern by Martina Ben. And it's sort of a poncho kind of shawl thing.
Uh-huh. It's really pretty.
It is really pretty, and it's in this hand-spun lace weight that my friend Lynn spun and then gave to me later. But I've been knitting on it for most of today, and this is the progress that I've made. That's maybe 2 inches.
So what the camera is not really picking up is this has a nice silk content.
Yeah, it's got sort of a sheen.
So it's got a really pretty sheen when you see it in person.
And it's nice and thin, so it won't be too heavy as a layering piece, but it's going to take forever.
And you're knitting that on size 5 needles?
Yes, my knitting, the needle I'm actually doing the knitting with, my right needle is a size 5, and my feeder needle is a size 3 or 2, size 2.
So you can easily slip it from one to the other.
So I'm not constantly trying to shove stitches up the left needle. It's much smaller in diameter, so they slide on real easy. Just makes it go a little faster for me. And
it's one of the pros of interchangeable needles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the Chalgu Reds, the lace ones, I think. What about you?
And I am binding off on the final panel of okay, hold on.
It's not the final panel, it's the final panel of this round.
Yeah, and I'm binding off, so I had on 2 needles, but I just scooched one to one side. Oop. I'm caught on the chair leg. Okay. So this is my log cabin blanket that I'm knitting for my niece. And it is a series of superwash wools. So the middle purple is Cascade 220. Then there's Barocco Vintage, Cascade 220. When I say Cascade 220, I mean Cascade 220 superwash. Dream in Color Classy. Zara and Zara. Cascade 220 is the orange, Liberty Wool, and then Dream in Color Cloud Jungle is the outer one that I'm finishing up on right now. And after that, there is going to be this green Barocco Vintage. So that's going to go to that. And the last section around is going to be purple. And that's going to be Miss Babs' Yowza What a Scheme that I picked up at Faberspace a couple years ago when we went there with Wendy Johnson, who's a great friend of the show.
She's awesome.
And a wonderful person. So, and she's got a cute new kitten called Loki.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorite names.
You should probably tell what you're wearing, too, because people will want to know. This hat.
It is a fiber company. Road to China Light. It was a shop model for Hank of Yarn. And the pattern, I will have to let you know later. But it's one of the fiber company patterns that they promote to use with their yarn. So it's 2 women who own that company or run that company. And they both are designers, and it's one of theirs. I can't remember which right now. I think there's a picture. I think in my projects page on Ravelry, it's actually there because I used it for a Harry Potter house cup.
So you had to make a project page.
Yep. So speaking of which, I got to get on that because I have not turned in any projects for this month. And like Leslie said, it's the 30th and
it's the 29th.
Or the 29th.
Yeah.
So I got to get that done.
You got a day to do it.
I've been working mostly on things that would not count, like ongoing works in progress. So like the blanket won't count.
It's a hard time of year to squeeze in
getting
extra
a lot of stuff done. But I did knit a cowl for my friend Becca, so I can submit that. I'll figure out which one I can work that into. That's the cool thing about House Cup. You can usually, if you knit something, find a way to work it in.
Yeah, they're very lax on their rules, like we are with like finding a way to make it work. For
Yes, for just about anything. So the first question that we are going to answer comes from Versterwait, or Worsterwait.
Yes.
She's from Tennessee, I believe, because we've met her. We've met her twice at SSK. She's been at both SSKs. And her questions, there's 3. What is the craziest knit gift that you have ever received?
That's Peggy the Peg Leg Pirate. And I knit that for Laura.
For my first birthday. My first birthday.
The first birthday that I was here.
Yes. So I had known her like 3 months, and she knit me a little
crazy, ridiculous
pirate.
And it has different colored eyes.
Yes, it's got a green eye and a blue eye, just like me.
And it has a little sword.
And a little sword, and it's got a belt buckle.
Yeah.
And Humberto loves scooching up next to him and cuddling. He stays in the craft room on the futon, and Humberto will scooch up and cuddle with him. I like the gold tooth, too. So this is probably the craziest knit gift. And I think he's the finest red heart.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Known to man.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine for toys, especially toys that aren't played with children.
That was before I really started buying nice wools, so.
Yep. So that's my craziest knit gift that I've ever gotten.
So the only thing that comes to mind is that deer hat, which was everywhere at Rhinebeck, by the way.
Really?
Everywhere.
That's so awesome.
People would stop each other that, like, they didn't even know this other person wearing the deer hat, but they'd stop and take pictures together because they had that solidarity of the deer hat.
That is wonderful.
So,
and that deer hat is
it was by Tiny Owl Knits.
Mm-hmm. And it's in the Woodland Knits book, which is right over there, actually. Do you see it? It's the green one.
Yeah.
So
it's that hat.
Yep.
And hopefully this isn't backwards like our last episode was. It's been a long time since we recorded
on a webcam.
With a webcam like this, so. Sorry, we didn't even think about the mirroring. It's been a minute, so.
And then best SSK moments. I always love at SSK the moment when people are coming in for the first time and registering, and we get to meet them face to face for either the first time or see them again. Right. And that always for me is that, oh my gosh, I know you. That moment is so much fun.
It's cool to walk through and see people who are sitting chatting, and then, one of them moves and suddenly their tag is visible and they're like, oh, you're XYZ. I know you. I talk to you online all the time. That's really cool. And it's nice to see people at the welcome and goodbye ceremonies too, and just see how much of a good time.
And y'all would never know that I hate talking in front of big crowds of people, but I get up and do that, and it's so much fun because it's such a welcome audience that my nervousness goes away pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't mind talking in front of people, but
I
do. Okay, let's see. The best LOL moment on the podcast for me was when I was still living here in Mississippi and we were recording on my sofa, and I mentioned some boy that you thought was cute.
Oh.
And your whole face was like a cranberry. It was so red. That was probably one of my favorite. Not yours, I know, but that was probably one of my...
He was cute. He was a trainer for something.
Yeah, some program that you guys did as teachers. I don't remember what it was.
One of my CEUs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was probably one of the funniest moments.
I think anytime, for me, when Beck gets involved in the podcast and we record somehow, that's always the craziest, funniest moments. Like the Dirty Hippie podcast that we filmed in Michigan. Because I like, Beck has no censor for stuff like that.
Laura and I both try to be pretty neutral on anything that has to do with any sort of sensitive issue, because while we may have personal opinions, this isn't a political platform for us, and we're not trying to convert anybody to any way of thinking, but it's second nature to us at this point. And
Beck doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And some of our other, I'm trying to think anyone else that doesn't really have that, but it's anytime Beck's involved,
Yeah.
especially when she
It's always a
knits
good
a
time.
Leslie wig or does something crazy. She's gonna do something crazy.
It's always a good time.
It's always fun.
And I also think introducing myself as you is funny. I've done that a couple
That's
times.
a good blooper. The next one is best blooper, and definitely that. Or when you cut in and like I had just been dancing in front of the camera just for the heck of it to see if it was working.
Yep.
When Beck and I recorded and Leslie put that in, that was a total, that was not supposed to go in. Okay.
Don't be jealous of my boogie.
Yes. Because Beck and I had watched RuPaul's Drag Race like 15 episodes in a row, the first season. And then we have Steph Stitches, who posted, what is your favorite craftsy class so far that you learned the most from? I really like the Felicia Lowe spinning color class. That's one of my favorites that I've taken. Definitely learned a bunch there, and I incorporated some of those techniques when I spun. That, which you can see I've knit a baby hat out of, and then, but just the blending of more contrast into a more neutral skein, I find that class really, really worth the money. In fact, there's a Craftsy sale going on this weekend. Mm-hmm. But like it's definitely worth the money on that one. The Laura Nelkin bead class is also fabulous. I really enjoyed that because I learned a lot about bead knitting from her. What would you say yours would be? Well,
keeping in mind that while I've purchased probably 10 classes, I've only actually watched parts of a couple just because I just forget about them and I end up watching TV or podcasts. But of the ones that I've watched, I would say Amy Detchen's.
That's the custom
yoked sweater.
Mm-hmm.
She's has a lot of involvement with the Elizabeth Zimmerman sort of enterprise, and so she like drops useful information without even knowing she's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's not knitting related, but the Jenny Doman Missouri Star Quilt Company, she does a lot of video tutorials on YouTube, but she also has a Craftsy class. And it walks you step by step through how to complete a quilt top, in like 4 or 5 different styles. And it was really, really useful. And I learned a lot from that.
I like the Amy Herzog too.
Yeah, the Amy Herzog Fit to Flatter.
And then Susan B. Anderson's Knit Toys.
I've gotten it, but I haven't watched that one.
That one's really good too. Yeah. So a lot of the Craftsy classes I really, really have enjoyed, but I guess those have been the ones that I've spent the most time viewing. And if you are looking to purchase Craftsy classes, we are Craftsy affiliates, so you can click through our site and we'll get a small percentage of that back, which allows us to buy more Craftsy classes. Not even gonna lie.
Yeah, and it helps with postage for prizes and stuff like that.
So thank you, Steph Stitches. The next is Princess Knit a Lot. And so this one is kind of hard for me because I have the only first-hand experience. The question is, what do you think about the magic knot? Should it be used to join yarn for sweaters? She's concerned it's not going to hold up. The only time I've magic knotted was when I used, when I created these for Leslie and I. I will tell you that my friend Eloise, who's Dingle Daisy, was making a magic ball and started knitting the shawl, and it unraveled on her. The magic knot did, and she had done the pull test and everything. And what we're thinking is, what she and I had a long discussion about this, is the yarn that she was using was over 50% silk content.
It's real slippy.
So if I would be hesitant to use it with something that does not have any grab, and to some extent that's superwash merino too. So I'm curious with this how it's going to wash and wear. But silk, even when you spin silk, so I just took a silk spinning class, and when you go to join, when you run to the end of your
cop or
they look like handkerchiefs, hankies. So when you get to the end of your silk hanky and you want to join another one, you actually have to make a little hole and go through the hole. Like you can't just hold them side by side and the twist is just going to join the two of them. It's too slick. There's no grab. So I would be hesitant to use it with any of the silk, like high silk content, any silk content, to be honest with you. high nylon content, because nylon,
maybe tencel or bamboo.
Tencel, bamboo, sea silk, any of those, I would be a little bit more hesitant. Like a wool, I think would be awesome, like 100% wool.
So I can say I used the Magic Knot for this, which is the Miranda sweater, and for the Delancey that I'm knitting. Those are both 100% wools, and I had no issues. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, you can just go on YouTube and put in knitting Magic Knot.
And Jane Richmond has a wonderful tutorial.
Yeah, and it is a knot in your knitting, but you trim out the ends, and it's really pretty invisible once you in your knitted finished object. So it will probably depend.
So yeah, that's what I would say. It's like anything else. I think it's going to be a great technique, but again, it's going to depend on what you're using it for. The next one is by Mrs. Macy JKO. And she asks the most embarrassing podcast moment, A, that you left in, and B, that you took out. We don't edit, really.
We really don't. And part of that is because we want the ideas for this to be a sort of a comfortable chat between us and you. And you can't edit real life, so we try to keep that to a minimum.
The only time that I can, we do cut off, like usually we trim at the beginning and the end, just because you don't need to see us reaching for the webcam or doing the camera. And sometimes I try to make Leslie laugh at the beginning. The only time I can think of that we actually censored really was when I said my school name, and you bleeped that out for me because I didn't want that. Right. That wasn't the podcast isn't the place for that.
Right.
So that's the only thing that I can think of that we really edited out. That was, it's not really embarrassing. It was more of a privacy issue.
Yeah. We leave most of the stupid embarrassing. Honestly,
embarrassing stuff we leave in.
Neither of us take ourselves seriously enough to assume that we should only put out the perfectly polished parts of ourselves. I have no makeup on. I haven't, this is my hair after I take a shower. I'm a very low maintenance kind of person, and unless there is a valid reason like privacy because Laura mentioned her school name or whatever, we're not going to edit. You're going to see all the stupid, goofy stuff like me introducing myself as the wrong name, or, my dog coming and knocking the camera over or whatever.
Or my face turning bright red when Leslie embarrasses me. Or saying the wrong name, like Dangerfield.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, that's who we are, and we're not going to, when you meet us in person, we don't want you to assume that we're more polished or put together than we are, because we're not, so we don't do a lot of editing. Like Laura said, it's mostly just if one of us, if I talk about something at work that, was kind of borders on privacy or whatever, I would edit that out, but that's really it.
Well, Fergie, who we spent the day with.
Yeah, Becca.
What are the best qualities in a yarn spinning shop? What are the must-haves? What are nice extras? And what would your dream shop be like?
My dream shop would also be a bakery.
Ooh. I could not do that because that would be as big as a house. And also highly caffeinated all the time.
No, I would say as far as a local knitting or spinning shop, I like to be greeted when I walk in the door and then left alone. Introduce yourself to me, ask me if you can help, and then please don't hover or follow me around the store. I will find you if I need you, trust me. And unless you provide a negative experience, I'll purchase something from your store.
I think that it should be cozy, but not overcrowded. I should not feel like something's going to fall on me if I'm going to reach for something.
I would also say I've been in several shops where the shop has locals who are there all the time and hanging around and knitting, which is completely awesome, and I completely support that. But if they're taking up a quarter of the shop and I can't get to things on the other side of them because they're taking up all that space, it's kind of detrimental to me purchasing something because I can't get over there without inconveniencing people.
And I can see a lot of locals. This is a conversation that I have with someone else about the pros and cons of having people sit in your shop.
Mm-hmm.
So the cool thing about having people sit in your shop is they are sharing information with each other. It becomes a community. Your shop becomes a community. It becomes an essential part of the community. The downside of that is if there's someone who's not part of that community, it can be very intimidating.
Yeah, you can feel very excluded, like you're bothering people by coming into the shop.
So there are pros and cons to that, and I don't think there's really not a happy medium with that. It also depends on whether your locals are coming in to purchase stuff, because when it comes down to it, local yarn shops are businesses, and you kind of have to respect that. They are there to make money. I mean, that is what pays the electricity bills. That's what allows you to sit there. And if you're coming in constantly and not purchasing anything, then you're not doing, I don't want to see like you're not doing your part to keep that shop open, but chances are over time that shop will not still be there for you to go hang out at.
Yeah.
I love shops that have a very, I almost want to say slick, but a very cohesive, and this is just like a house. If you walked into a house, I would love to see like, I like the black cubes. I like stuff organized.
Right. Whether it be by weight or by fiber content.
Or by color.
Something.
Color. I need some kind of organization. I love to see books, and that's sad because I really feel like books are dying out of yarn shops because they're being purchased on Amazon or digitally, and that's kind of leaving yarn shops. But I really like seeing books.
I love shop samples. You cannot have enough shop samples in your shop. It really helps to sell the yarn, and this is, I guess, more directed toward shop owners. But it makes a big difference if I can see the overall look of how an item's going to look knitted in that particular. And
I like being able to see what's coming up. If it's a local shop to me, what classes are coming up, whether it's on a board behind the counter or there's
flyers.
But I'll tell you what, when I'm traveling to a shop and it's not one I'm familiar with, I do go to websites, and websites do make a difference. I mean,
knitmap.com is a big one, but also Ravelry. If you are a shop owner and you're watching this, you're probably already pretty tech savvy, but
I was amazed at TNNA how many are not.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who were not interested in.
But there's a lot of people who are making an attempt. Like the Ravelry classes at TNNA were pretty full, so that's a great sign of just how shops are changing in general. So what would an extra, I can't read that part over. Hold on.
What are the nice extras?
Nice extras, having stuff besides just knitting, having crochet, having weaving, having spinning, and offering classes in some of those things, chatting, things that we might not be exposed to very often. What would my dream shop be like? Ooh, like Fiberspace.
Fiberspace is a wonderful, wonderful shop in the DC area. If you haven't been there and you're local, you should really go. And I'm not saying it's the only one. It's the only one I've been to.
I like Loop in Philly, too. That's one of my favorites.
It's a little smaller, but I really like Fiberspace's overall sort of mantra. They have lots of people on staff, so there's always plenty of people to help you. They have a nice little separate sitting area, so it's separate from the rest of the yarn.
And I like how the selection that they have. They have a good selection of both indies and then
big
stuff
companies.
like Cascade, other big companies.
Yeah, they're a very not corporate sort of shop, and I like that about them. And they have personality. Like, all of the folks that work there are really sweet. This has just become a commercial for Fiberspace, but they
it's
have
a nice shop. And one of the questions is, what is your favorite shop that you visited? So definitely Fiberspace.
Yes.
I like Loop. When I'm in Philly, I go to Loop. I like Manning's, which is in Pennsylvania, because it totally doesn't follow 90% of the things that I like about shops. But
it holds memories for you, right?
It does hold memories, and it's kind of off the beaten path. But they have so much stuff and different, like in weaving and spinning. You can go there and try like 30 different wheels, a ton of different looms. They have weaving and spinning classes. It was primarily a weaving spinning shop that added knitting later. So at least that's my impression of it. So that's one of my favorites to visit too. Plus it doesn't hurt that I went there a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
The shop in Swickley and outside of Pittsburgh's the same way. Like, I think shops do become part of the community, especially if they've been around a long time, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If I had all the monies and could go to any shop in the world, where would I go?
Wollmeise.
Yep. I was going to say Wollmeise.
In Pfaffenhofen, Germany.
Or there's that one in England. Is that Loop?
Looped or Loop. I can't remember. It was one of those.
That one looks really, really cool.
I would love to go to Fiber East, which is a spinning sort of festival event. That's the one that Sarah Anderson was going to.
Oh, yeah, that's in England as well. I'd like to go to some shops in Portland because, A, there's a awesome bookstore there, but there's some
Twisted was a really great shop as well.
I've never been to, and I think would be very cool as well.
I'd like to visit some of the knitting icons sort of local shops, like
Maggie Casey's got a shop.
Yeah, I've been to Shuttle Spindles and Skeins. That's Maggie Casey's in Colorado, Boulder, I think. And then I'd love to go to the Yarn Harlots Let Us Knit.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Well, it's not hers, so to speak, but her local. I'd like to go to Pearlescence, the TheKnitGirlls shop.
Was on my list too. Definitely.
Just it would be nice to sort of connect that way with people who you peripherally know through the internet. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
So okay, let's keep going. Go down. This is. I'm sorry, y'all. Our computer. We're not smart. This is from Creative Teacher. What advice do you have for someone who is looking to start their first sweater? What sort of things should I look for in a pattern? Would you suggest top down or bottom up?
I would say top down at first for a first sweater. What do you think?
I think probably it will be easier to do a top down sweater first. I would find a small person to knit for and knit a child size or baby size sweater first, just so you can get down the mechanics of putting sleeves on holders or putting on a button band or anything like that. Because if you make a mistake on a little sweater, it's a couple hours lost. If you make a mistake on a big sweater, it's a couple days worth of knitting lost sometimes. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. I think top down, if you're doing an adult sweater, you can try on as you go. Mm-hmm. So while the seams there are no seams up here, so there's not a lot of structure, it does allow you to try on as you go. So you can kind of see right away if you're doing the right side. Mm-hmm. Like you get down to here where you divide for the sleeves and you try on and you can see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think a top down raglan sweater is a great one.
I would do worsted weight, something that's not going to be too labor intensive.
Definitely.
And give yourself a lot of slack, because I'll probably knit half a dozen sweaters before I knit one that fit. So, I mean,
I think that's very true.
Give yourself some slack. And if it doesn't fit you, either come to terms with ripping it or come to terms with giving it to someone that it does fit.
That's a good call, because Leslie and I were talking earlier, and we're going to rip out elements of a sweater each. Mm-hmm. You're ripping out a whole sweater, right?
Yeah, I'm going to rip out my owls just because, while I love the finished sweater, I don't love it on me. And that yarn is too expensive not to use.
Yeah, and I'm going to rip out the button band and the top on my antler because it's falling. It feels like it's constantly falling off. Well, first off, when I did it, I had 5 porcelain buttons. So I made 5 buttonholes, and they are two, and then I broke a couple of the buttons. So they're too far spaced out. I don't like the spacing. It's like this far between buttonholes, and that's too much. So I'm going to repurchase. Yeah, I'm going to repurchase more buttons. I'm hoping the ones that I ended up going with are still available at Joann Fabrics, and so I'm going to they are for my little tea cozy. I have an extra one. I definitely have 6, so there's that button right there. And then I'm going to raise the neckline a little bit. So I have to find the ends and unweave the ends and rip those out, the button bands, and then rip down. Not even down, just rip out the bind off and just add a little, like another inch. I have this much yarn left over.
You should be good.
So I should be, see, I'd run out of yarn and had to order another skeins. There's a lot, excuse me, there's a lot going on with that sweater that I'm not super happy with. So.
Yeah.
Why live with something you're not super happy with when you have the ability to make it better?
Sometimes, granted, you have to put things in timeout for a little while before you can kind of come back without like hate in your heart for dealing with it. But give it time, work on something else, and come back and fix it.
All right. Everything Old M asks, what is your biggest crafty achievement? Your worst, most embarrassing crafting fail.
I have a lot of fail, and I normally share them with y'all. So,
what's your biggest achievement? Would it be the Even Star?
Probably Even Star, which is a shawl by Susan Pandorf, and it is huge circular shawl with a beaded, knitted, applied edging. And it was for my friend Karen, who got married, and it was her wedding veil. And it was beautiful and fantastic, and I will never knit it again.
Was that the second one that you had done, or was that the only one?
I've only done that one once. I've done Shipwreck twice, but that one uses pre-strung beads, so it's not as crazy making as the Even Star. Well, I think it is beautiful, and Susan Pandorf writes some beautiful patterns. It's just a little too much.
It's very labor intensive with the beading.
What's your proudest achievement knitting wise?
I really like the first pair of socks that I knit out of hand spun. And that's a spinning and knitting accomplishment. And the knitting on that was not a big deal. But I wear those socks all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so cool to have socks that are A, super comfy, but B, I knit out of hand spun. And they've lasted for a couple years now. That would probably be one of them. The other one would probably be some of the stuff that I knit for Wendy Johnson for her book, her first book that, not her first book, but her first Socks from the Toe Up. Yeah. Just because seeing my name in print for the first time, and that was before I was even really designing a whole lot, was just it's still such a big deal. Like, I take that book to school and show my kids my name in the back, seeing like, hey, you can have your name in the back of the book too. It's not that hard. That's just a very, very cool thing to me. So I guess that would be my biggest crafting accomplishment, those two things. My most embarrassing crafting fail, I fail all the time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one that sticks out for me, but...
And I fail, like, epically all the time. Like, I always set deadlines on myself, and sometimes they're totally not achievable. Like, that blanket was supposed to go someplace this week. And it'll get there eventually. I fail a lot at spinning too. I'm trying to think.
Overextending yourself.
Yeah.
You do that a lot.
And there's just been some things that, like, when I spun them in my head coming out, they're perfect, but I'm trying to see if I can find one. But, like, I have to reply. Oh, here's one. Okay, so this is stuck out because I need to reply it. This is all spun up. And it's pretty, but it's not really usable as is because it really needs to be replied.
It's just a little underplied.
It's very much so underplied. There's no little about it. It's sweet of you to say that, but there's no little about it. So, but my first sweater was out of Lion brands that I held double baby soft in a lovely light yellow that is in a landfill somewhere. Didn't gauge for it. I think anytime you don't gauge your first sweater, you're asking for fail. I've knit socks where they do not fit humans many a time.
I knit that might qualify. I knit a baby sock. And this was when I was first starting to knit socks. I had knit a pair of plain Regia socks and then monkeys, I think, the monkey pattern. And then I was going to knit baby socks, but I was still like I have to pay really close attention to the pattern. I have to measure all the time. I hadn't hit my like stride and sort of intuitively knowing, okay, I should probably start looking at decreases now or whatever. And I was knitting a baby sock out of Panda something.
I know exactly what yarn you're talking about.
The cuff is this long, and the little baby foot was like this long. And at no point while I was knitting this did I think, I don't know if I know any babies with feet this long, you know? And I bound it off, and then I put it down and was taking a picture of it, and I thought, that looks wrong.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually on my project page.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Who is your favorite person to knit for? Besides Leslie, my nieces. Or my mom. My mom is always super appreciative of any hand knit gift she gets. My sister and grandma are the same way, though. I'm very lucky in that my sister-in-law, too. I have a very appreciative knit family. My brother, not so much. He gets gift cards because that's what he likes, and that's what it should be. Yeah. Like, that's the way it should be. So definitely my nieces are probably, as y'all see, I knit for my nieces a lot, and they're definitely my favorites. And Leslie and my mom would be close seconds, and then Beck can knit for herself. Leslie can knit for herself too, but it's fun to knit for her.
Your family is fun to knit for. I had dinner with Laura's mother over the summer because she happened to be in Philly for something. And
probably lacrosse something.
And I had dinner with Laura's mother and her father and her sister, and Laura wasn't there, but when we were getting ready to leave this little diner, Laura's mom stood up to give me a hug, and she had on these socks that I had forgotten. I knit her like 3 years ago. I'd forgotten all about it, and I was like, that's so sweet. You know, I forgot.
And she didn't even think like, oh, Leslie made these for me. They were just in her stuff.
Just people that appreciate hand knits. I mean, I've handcrafted some gifts and spent lots and lots of time on them, and I know they're not being appreciated in the way that I would hope. And I don't mean that as like they're reverently like, you know, displayed or anything, but just people that don't appreciate the amount of effort it takes is all.
That's true.
But I usually only make that mistake once, and then I don't craft for that person anymore. So what inspires you to be a more awesome knitter / podcaster / person?
Well, having you podcast with me kind of helps a little bit. I get a lot of inspiration from other podcasts, and I actually was thinking about this the other day because I've been doing a lot of audio podcast knitting, but my video podcast knitting, to be honest with y'all, I have not watched a single video podcast since around SSK. Life's just been really busy right now. And I was thinking to myself, I really miss that inspiration that I get from people like Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks, or Amy and Darren, or Mel, or Malia, or the podcast that I watch. I mean, there's so many that I haven't been watching lately. But I have been listening to Paula of Knitting Pipeline and the Knit Moors, and Dana and Brittany. So I can listen to them in the car, but I really need to go back and make more time for podcasts, and also reading blogs like Susan B. Anderson, Wendy Johnson, The Yarn Harlot. All of those are blogs that I find simply notable. A ton of just different blogs. Hey Pork Chop that I haven't had time to read like I like to lately. So
I think we all go through periods like that when we just, you know, I'm behind. I'm like a month behind on almost all of my podcasts. And it's just because, you know, it's that time of year. You know, we've been traveling, got stuff going on. It's just, it's not as feasible to keep up with everything. I mean, there are some folks who watch every single video podcast out there, and I don't know how. But
that's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah,
like, I wish I had that not even motivation. I wish I had the time to do that. And you know, you make time for things that are important for you. And I always appreciate the time that our viewers spend with us because I know time's at a premium. And I'll explain why this keeps dropping in a second.
Let's see.
What else?
She would also be okay with Neelix / Humberto cameos. Neelix is over at my in-laws, and
Humberto is sleeping on my bed.
Yeah.
And I was not going to wake him because he's been naughty lately.
I didn't even think earlier we had the question of your biggest crafty achievement. Oh, that was the same from Everything Old M. I would say the It's All About Me quilt. Ranks pretty high up there.
That is pretty cool.
The first, like, real people-sized quilt that I made dealt with patchwork, applique, and quilting. And it was a lot, but I was just, you know, it was like how some people start off on socks when they're knitting. Nobody told them it was hard.
Yep.
And so they just did it. I would guess that's kind of the same vein. Now, why don't you tell us why that's continuing to drop?
Okay, so on this is a Spanish peacock spindle, and I learned after I started with it, first the cop's pretty full. So it's getting to that weight limit part, but I only have that much left to go, so I really want to get it all on there. But if I was to do this over again, his spindles don't have a notch.
Yeah.
You can kind of see. And so there's nothing, and the hook's kind of a corkscrew.
Yeah, that's his little trademark.
And so it's not grabbing on itself, so I'm having to put a knot over my thumb in it to try to keep it to grab. But next time I spin on this spindle, I'll talk about inspired by podcasters, Malia. Yep. This was too late for this one because this has been on here for a long time. But, because it's almost done, she had talked about, you can do your original leader and then have this, and it'll catch, so it won't be falling. So that's why it's doing that. It's falling a little bit as that knot's not catching the...
You'll be finished with that a little bit soon.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully by the time we're recording. It's just been sitting on my desk for so long because it's gotten to the point where I don't like spinning on it because it's too heavy. So it's falling.
So the next question we've missed. What are you guys doing for Halloween? I turned the light off and did nothing. And I didn't do that to be callous. I have 2 dogs now, and they both go crazy when the doorbell rings, and would probably have had a heart attack if they heard it like repetitively.
Continuously.
So we just turned it off for the night. Did you do anything? Did you hand out candy?
I was sick that night. I had a long day at school and I got a migraine, so Mom and Dad handed out candy, and I hid upstairs with lights out, and that was the I'm just gonna say it. So I've been looking for houses, and I actually have a contract on one now. But that was the day that we went to 3 houses before I came home for trick-or-treating, and 2 of them were short. Well, one was a short sale, and because it was being repossessed by the bank, they made the choice to allow their animals to use it as a bathroom.
Destroy it, yeah.
Which, that's their choice. So I walked in, and it was like getting hit in the face with
ammonia.
Yeah, so I triggered me not getting a terrible headache that just took a little while to go away. So, but I do have a contract on a house, and I close on the 19th of December.
Yep.
And
then she leaves the next day.
Then I leave the next day, and we'll be up near Leslie, so I'll be back up in Leslie's neck of the woods to visit family on the 20th. And that's about it. I bought a fridge this week.
She has 3 rooms to put things in.
Been shopping for insurance this week. Doing all the things the bank likes before you can buy a house.
Yeah, all the boring grown-up stuff.
So why I haven't had time to craft as much lately is I probably looked at 75 houses to find this one that's perfect for me. So first house, very exciting. I know some of you, like Sue's, guessed that that's what was going on. But, so hopefully we've already had the inspection. That was this past Monday, so I feel more comfortable talking about it because I had actually put in an offer on another house and did not get it. Someone else got it. So I felt like I needed to wait before something was more concrete. So pending a tornado or other natural disaster, hopefully, and pending the appraisal from the bank, this should be, which I don't think will be an issue. And Leslie got to walk through it with me, because I was making my prioritized list on Wednesday of what repairs needed to be done. So anyway, that's where a lot of time's been going lately. That was a total random aside.
People who watch us know that we do that. So.
T-Bird 0123 asks, what is your favorite food and favorite drink? Diet Dr. Pepper or coffee for me. Leslie doesn't drink coffee.
I do not drink coffee. I have tried many different kinds, flavored, sugary, all that stuff. I've just never liked it. I typically I try not to drink the diet drinks just because I'd rather have sugar than the fake sugar because they're still finding things how that can screw you up. But so Dr. Pepper is probably my favorite non-alcoholic drink. And my favorite food would be nachos. Any kind of nachos.
I like pizza. I also like sushi.
Laura is an ovo something vegetarian. So she eats
I eat fish, but I don't eat.
But no beef or chicken or any of that.
Land animals.
Yeah.
So sushi. And I like veggie sushi too. But I like fish sushi.
I can't remember what it is. It's ovo something.
I don't know. I don't like words. Damn words. Stupid words. Ruining everything. I don't like labels. How about that? I just don't eat meat that resides on land. So that's it for me. So you have something.
Woolly Bee Knits says, for Leslie. How do you balance family time with knitting, spinning, podcasting, working, and traveling to knitting retreats? It makes me tired thinking about all you do. My guess is you're super organized. No, I wish that I was.
You are when it comes to Knit Girl stuff and SSK stuff.
I am, and that's primarily because Knit Girls and SSK have their own tax information and bank information, and I'm very meticulous about that because
that's illegal.
It's not my money. It is money that relates to the business or the SSK event or whatever. So I'm very, very particular about that. But in my personal life, I'm not nearly as organized. I'll go ahead and say I'm very spoiled with my partner. Michael does a lot of it. He's the zookeeper, so anything that has to do with the animals, he takes care of, which was an agreement we made before we got any animals. He does, we share the cooking. He does more like grilling, and I tend to do more baking, but we share the cooking. He does the cleaning because he doesn't mind doing the cleaning, whereas when I do the cleaning, I am in a crummy mood because I have to clean. And my son is at the age now, he's 10, where he likes to know we're there, but he doesn't really want us hanging around. So I would say on an average night, we probably only spend maybe an hour of the 3 hours that he has free time together. And he spends those other 2 hours either playing Minecraft or reading or playing with the dogs or whatever. So I'm lucky in that I work at a computer, so I can do a lot of the Ravelry related or Knit Girls related stuff at work, so I can kind of get that out of the way. And then when I get home, I can, cook, clean, and relax. And I do a lot of reading at night too. So, for Laura, are you ever tempted to move to New Jersey? I didn't ask this. Somebody else asked this. To be closer to your best friend, sister, family, etc., and brother, nieces, sister-in-law. Do you think you could ever get your parents to move? Why not have Mrs. Wheezy as a guest? We would love to, but we couldn't get her to sit still long enough.
And she doesn't like being on camera. She has been on. She did a quick cameo at one point, but she doesn't like attention. Does that make sense? Like when we go someplace, like whether it be Maryland Sheep and Wool or even SSK, she wants to help, but she does not want the attention. She's known me since I was little, so I'm not a big deal to her. I am, but I'm not, if that makes sense. You're just doing this silly little knitting thing. Yeah, like I'm just doing this knitting thing. It always shocks her. I'll never forget our first festival that I went to with her after the podcast had been recorded. It was Murfreesboro, and one of the viewers recognized her based on her name on the credit card that she was paying with, which was so sweet. You're Mama Linneman. And it really took her aback, and it really, I think, really embarrassed her a little bit. And she came and got me immediately and was like, there's someone over there who knows you. You should go talk to them. I told them that you would go talk to them. So it's, for her, it's, she doesn't like it a whole lot. I've been tempted to move up north, but I'm happy in my career, and that means a lot to me. And now I have a house, which I could not afford up north. I'm getting 1,700 square foot for what would not be feasible up there at all. So, and I'll give you all a tour of the house once it's painted. Hopefully the walls aren't tour black she gave me. She sent me one with her phone, and it was like all I could see were pixels, like, blurring in and out. And I was trying to slow down too. Like I was consciously thinking of going slow, but the focal wall right there, the fireplace is painted black right now, and that's not going to stay. So once it gets how I want it, then I'll give you all a tour. But yeah, it's. Next time I come down, we can record there. We could. That's it won't be until next year at some point. So yeah. So a lot more will be done at that point. But yeah, I've been tempted, but not enough to uproot my life down here to do that. Yeah, plus the thought of moving all that stuff north, all the stash, kind of makes me nauseous. Cry me a river. The next question is from, I think we're going to skip this one.
Yeah, this one is by L.Y. Simakis, and it's about
we'll come back to that because Leslie doesn't have hers with her.
Bring anything, so we'll come back to it.
So, and FOs that we wear regularly. Mm-hmm. So Tiger B asks, what is one thing you love about yourself and one thing that you love about the other? I really appreciate the commitment that Leslie makes to the podcast. That's kind of a cop-out. But also, one of my favorite things about Leslie is when something does not happen quite like she would like it to happen, whether it's moving to New Jersey or another personal situation, she becomes a stronger person because of it.
If you make me cry, I'm going to poke you with my needle. I'm just going to say.
So that's what I enjoy about Leslie. I'm really bad about doing this for myself.
Well, I think that probably one of my favorite things about Laura is that even when she doesn't feel like being happy, she'll fake it to make someone else happy. Like if I'm having a crappy day or we just recorded the same episode for the 4th time and it still didn't work, she'll put on the happy face and make a joke.
It's going to be fine.
She's
Leslie always pokes me when I say, it'll be okay.
It'll be okay. That's Laura's, like it's going to be tattooed in her skull. But, she's really good at like taking the focus off of the negative and trying to make it into a positive. So, and that's something I suck at. When I get in a crummy mood, it's really hard for me to get out of it. I have to like go take a nap or go buy something. It's a terrible thing to say, but it's the truth. And Laura's much better at, I don't know if she pulls herself out of it truly or she's just a really good faker.
I can fake it pretty well sometimes. I am one of those people that will obsess about that moment over and over and over again if something does not quite go right. Yeah. But then usually I can pull myself out of it pretty easily.
What's your favorite thing about yourself?
I like to think I'm pretty flexible. It's hard to do it for yourself. It feels like a job interview. Like, what are you good at?
Tell me your biggest weakness.
I just had to do that for, so we have a new, system at work for your observations and stuff. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is you have to sit down with your principal and answer all these questions. And it was like, what was the greatest strength of this lesson? What was your greatest weakness in this lesson? And my greatest weakness is always time management. I like to talk a lot. I get the kids involved. And then before I know it, the bell's ringing and I've gotten through half of what I wanted to get through. But I like to think that I'm flexible. I think you have to be somewhat flexible dealing with middle schoolers every day, just because things are not always going to go your way. Trust me, they rarely go my way. I was going
to say, when was the last time they did go your way?
But I try to be pretty flexible and just roll with it. What's your favorite thing about yourself? See, I didn't forget. I turned it back on you.
I kind of hate those kind of questions. Mine's sort of in the same vein as being flexible. Like, I like to think that I can learn from something, from an experience. I had a really crummy experience over the summer, and it kind of jaded me for a while, and I've tried to come out of it learning something and not sort of hold on to the bitter anger or whatever, and just, still allow myself to be open with people and be friendly and all that. So I would say I like to think that I am able to learn and move on from things, and try to be a very open-minded and flexible parent, because anybody with biases or any sort of prejudices, it's only going to limit you. It's not going to change the group or whatever that you're against. So I try to keep my son thinking that he, keep with an open mind and all that. And I feel like I'm blathering. Can we change the subject?
Yeah, definitely. So, ACP asks, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of good basic knitting books. Excluding patterns, what would you put in a book to take a knitter to the next level? Have you seen this book yet? I think you cannot go wrong with The Principles of Knitting as a book, a good general book to take your knitting to the next level.
I think that might be a little overwhelming. The Principles of Knitting
it's like the encyclopedia of knitting. But I think if you are doing something and there's, like Leslie and I were talking earlier about the cardigan, the Delancey she's working on, and borders.
Yeah, I wanted to change a button band or...
how you would do that. I feel like that book, or if you don't know what a term is, like SSK, I feel like that's a great, it's a reference book.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great reference book to help you explore different techniques that you might not know already. It is a little bit dated, but I think it's a neat one if we're excluding pattern books from the choices. I'm trying to think. My favorite sock book for toe-up socks is definitely the Wendy Johnson. I do have a bias towards that, but I like that book not for the patterns. I like the patterns, of course, but the information she gives at the beginning, I think I'm kind of looking over at my bookcase. If y'all are wondering what I'm looking at, I have one of my bookcases in here. I think that's a good one. Circular Knitting Workshop by Margaret Radcliffe is another good one. If you're just I think it depends on the technique that you want to learn.
Well, and I think it also depends on how you learn. So I had a conversation with someone, I think it was Dorian, Simply Me 52, about the Elizabeth Zimmerman style of sweater, which is knit bottom up in pieces. So 1 tube for the body, a tube for each sleeve, and then
it's... You're going to grab the Elizabeth Zimmerman book right there.
And it's joined.
It's Knitter's Almanac. It's the big, it's the anniversary edition.
So Elizabeth Zimmerman is no longer with us. She passed away, 10, 15 years ago?
99 maybe.
And she had her own style of...
it's conversational knitting.
Yes. So for her, if you're looking up how to knit a particular sweater that's in the round from the bottom up, you might have to read through 10 pages of her sort of stream of consciousness before you have the entire pattern. Versus when you buy a pattern now from Ravelry download, it's only going to be do this step, do this step, do this step. It's not going to be sort of an anecdotal conversation.
And why you would do this versus another thing, and why gauge matters.
And so it really depends on how you learn. And really, I honestly think Craftsy is a great resource for the beginning knitter. A lot of people tend to learn that way now. So I would say it would depend on who or how you learn, and maybe if you can come back and ask us more specifically, we'll answer it.
For a more specific technique, too. I think that there are a lot of good books out there, and some of them, like the Amy Herzog's, focuses on one thing, whereas other books focus on other things. So it just like knitting in the round, or knitting from the center out, or Fair Isle,
or lace, or beading.
And I really think that those topics are big enough that they can use their own book as well. But there are some that, like the Principles of Knitting, which is just huge and very overwhelming. If you're trying to read it straight through, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like a dictionary. There's no way.
But it's like I don't read the encyclopedia for fun. I was laughing at I have 2 library helpers who are super smart, and they were looking up words in the dictionary back and forth for fun the other day, and I was just sitting there laughing at them a little bit, laugh like, y'all are so awesome type laugh, not because that's nothing. Like when I was 14, I was not looking up words in the dictionary for the heck of it, and I'm an English major, so it's just very cute. They're very cute, and I wish they would date.
All right, we're going to do one more group of questions from one more person, Elizabeth, and then we'll probably call it a day because we're at about an hour now. First question, do you enjoy other crafts that don't include yarn?
Spinning includes yarn, doesn't it?
Well, you know yarn, so...
let's see. I used to do calligraphy more, and I kind of miss that a little bit. I used to do scrapbooking, so more paper crafts. But most of my crafting energy, I'm not a good drawer. Like my mom and Beck are fabulous artist type people. That's not something that I'm really into. I like photography, and I need to take more craft. I've taken the Craftsy class on that as well. And they have a whole separate section on photography. And I'd like to get more into photography. So if there was another craft that I could add, it would be photography, I think. But that's I don't do a lot of non-yarn. I have to focus my energy somewhere.
Really.
Otherwise, my new house would have to have 18 rooms.
And if reading was a craft, you'd be like a gold medalist.
I do like reading. Like, that is my other free time thing that I do. I typically read a book a night, so. Or now that I'm getting older, half a book a night, because I need more sleep than I did when I was 20. 32 is hitting me. This time change has really hit me hard this year. Like,
yeah, well,
when I get home and it's dark and it's 7 o'clock, I want to be in bed. I don't want to be up moving around. So, how about you?
I do cross stitching sometimes, not very much, and I also do quilting and a little bit of sewing, but mostly quilting. I don't do a lot of it just because I don't have a quilting podcast that I have to produce for every week.
That's very true too.
So, and it's this time of year, it's just impossible to get stuff done. So, I'm
always impressed by like Darren and Amy, the like woodcraft and the carpentry that they get done.
They do a lot of stuff around their house, and they make a lot of their own.
It's very impressive.
What is your favorite commercial, low cost and high cost commercial yarn?
Okay.
That you would recommend?
It's like commercial
to someone who is growing their stash on a low budget.
I like the Patton's Croix for more low cost for socks, definitely. I
like Barocco, honestly. I've used their vintage or vintage DK and their vintage chunky, and it's very reasonable. This is $9 for 200 yards, 217 yards. And I've used this for sweaters and blankets and hats and slippers.
And I think knitting on a budget can be like today's Black Friday in the U.S. So it's a very commercial holiday, but at the same time, you'll find a lot of sales from the big yarn shops where maybe if you wait for a sale like today, you might be able to get some nicer yarns. Even like the vintage, I mean, a sweater's worth of vintage for me is still we're talking 7 times 9. It's still a decent amount of money. Yeah. Whereas or Dizzy Sheep, where they put a different yarn on sale every day, and you can go on Ravelry and get a coupon on top of that. That makes it a little bit more affordable. High-end yarn, I think it changes on our...
Check D-stashes.
Yes, definitely.
D-stashes on Ravelry, there are groups committed just to D-stashing, and a lot of times when people get into a point where they need to D-stash, they're more particular about the costs of those like big name yarns, and they're more likely to group a more commercial yarn with a lower price. Or that's what I've noticed anyway. So I would also check Ravelry D-stashes or barter for yarn.
Yeah, definitely. Highest yarn that you would recommend? I like Malintosh Vintage.
I do
That's
like
a higher end.
Malintosh Vintage.
I like the Dream in Color Classy.
I like that as well.
Three Irish Girls makes a great commercial yarn that's a little higher end.
I am trying to branch out and buy like sweater quantities of indie yarn. So not because it's better or worse than commercial yarn, just trying to find ways to support the indies more broadly. Although it is more of a sort of a risk to take someone that is less known and buy a large amount, like a sweater quantity.
I like Quince & Company too.
I like Quince & Company, and their price point is nice as well.
And there's nothing wrong with majority of the sweaters I've made have been out of Cascade 220.
My hero's out of Cascade. I've knit a couple of sweaters out of Cascade.
I like Cascade. You like Stonehenge. You use that.
Stonehenge, Shepherd's Mill or Shepherd's Wool. I can't remember. That's very reasonably priced. I know Loopy U carries that.
I like the Malabrigo Rasta.
I've not used that. I've used Rios, and I liked it a lot.
Or, I'm sorry, Rios. That's what I meant. The Rasta is a big thing. I have Rasta on the brain because I knit up Rasta Cal the other day.
I would say if you're looking to invest a fair amount of money into yarn, go to that Yarn's Ravelry page, look at the comments. Yep. Take the comments with a grain of salt, because it's rare that someone who loves the yarn is going to go and leave that comment on the yarn. It's more often they're unhappy about something and they're going to leave a comment. But you can also go into projects that have used that yarn, and a lot of people will comment, "Oh, this yarn is wonderful," or whatever in their project. So,
I also think before you invest in like a sweater's worth of yarn, like the vintage, I would get one skein and knit a hat or something else.
You can get leftovers.
Or leftovers from someone in a D-stash. And
See how you like the hand of it.
Definitely. So,
what is one independent hand spun or hand dyed yarn that everyone should have in their stash? Oh God, I don't think we can answer this question without 30 indies getting really mad at us for not choosing them.
I think it depends on what you're looking to make. Like, I have a much different approach to a hat than a pair of socks. Fiber Company for a high end is also a lovely one. I like self-striping. I mean, obviously, if you've watched the show, self-striping is one of my go-tos, and there's around 30 self-stripers that I just love.
Yeah.
And Vesper is probably my guilty pleasure that I get the most of. So if I have more than one of anything in my stash, like the most yarn from one brand in my stash, it's probably either Volmaz or Vesper.
Yeah, and I like Vesper's colors, but because of how tightly I knit, I would have to go to zeros for that, so I just don't use Vesper.
It's a skinnier.
Yeah.
And I like Marigold Gem. I mean, there's so many good ones out there.
I'm not going to answer this question because
I'll
upset
you can go
somebody.
well. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
don't think you can go wrong. So there's a lot out there to choose from. So if you have a question about a specific person, you could totally...
Yeah, send us a PM or something, but...
Yeah. If a zombie breaks into your house and you're trapped in the room you are in now, you have no weapons, what would you kill it with and how? I have nothing. Like, I guess the big, huge lights.
I have a really heavy glass from IKEA.
But there are needles. Big, huge light fixtures.
We could smother them with the yarn.
Yeah, I think we would have to shove all the yarn up against the door. I don't think we're going much of anywhere. This room's kind of a disaster right now.
I could kill them with my rubber band bracelet that my son made.
That is so sweet. Don't even start about those rubber band bracelets. My kids make them all the time at work.
Yeah, I think we'd have to take one of our umbrella lights and just beat them with it.
I think you could spear. Well, with zombies, it's not like you just stab them through the heart or anything.
You gotta get them through the head, man.
Yeah. So I think maybe one of the light umbrellas through the skull. I don't know.
This is the weirdest question we've had so far.
Well, it's a nice one. I like it.
Yeah.
I think that is about all that we have to add. Yep, that's the last one. So we are going to call it a night, and like we have been doing, we'll be answering at least one question
each episode.
So thank you everyone who's put forth a question. This was a lot of fun. Tonight was fun.
It is nice to just sit and talk versus.
And I didn't have any knitting because I finished binding off right away. So I was. Yeah,
that's why you were reaching for the spinning. Okay.
That's why I was constantly playing with my cool new ring.
Your Leslie Wind cable thing.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next weekend.
Bye y'all.